Hey people, welcome to the channel, and in this case talking about a beautiful problem that Argentine people now have, which is deciding what gun to buy. As always, if you enjoy the content of my channel, you can subscribe with the button somewhere over there. There's a ton of information already. This is realistic survival preparedness without fear and paranoia, simply analyzing the facts that we have to deal with, the potential threats, and preparing accordingly. You also have my books, Surviving the Economic Collapse, as well as 3 survival skills, available in the links there below. For less than a box of ammunition, you have something that's far more important, which is the knowledge. The knowledge you have is always going to be more important than any specific tool. But having said all of that, what's going on? Well, now thanks to President Javier Milei, we have more hope in the future. Javier Milei has done some things right, some things maybe not so cool, but one of the things we definitely appreciate is some new changes to our laws in terms of firearms, by which we have a better access to detachable box magazine rifles, right? This was extremely restrictive before, and even though you could have them, it was very, very extremely difficult. You basically needed to be authorized by the Minister of Defense to own one. It was something that basically was impossible for most people. Not completely impossible, but nearly so. Now, with these new changes, Argentines can, and we still need to wait a little bit and see exactly what is it that's required. Some of the requirements, like having a gun license, those things will stay. That's not going away. But once you have your gun license, once you pass that, well, it is nice to see that you have access to a nice amount of options. The thing is this, being something that's going to be new, the market is not ready for it, and what you have mostly is the FAL. Not the FAL in gun stores. Again, this was not something that you could commonly go and buy. But given that the FAL is the gun of the armed forces of Argentina, there's a very good chance, especially as some of these start getting changed, that some of these will make their way to the civilian market and people will go buy it. And of course, Argentines love the FAL. They freaking adore the FAL, and I am one of them. I absolutely adore the FAL. That's why my name in the forums was always FAL. FAR for Fernando, which is my name, FAL, because it's my favorite rifle. I believe it is a superior design. It is a beautiful design by one of the best firearms designers that ever lived. Actually, the same guy that finished the design of the Browning High Power, by the way, Simon Dudon. Anyway, was like French, Austrian. Anyway, some dude working in FN at the time. And it's a beautiful design. The AR, and I've written about this, I'm not a fan of the AR. I think that the AR I think that the AR started as a much inferior design and slowly got improved here and there. But basically what you saw now is the final evolution of the AR, by which they finally get rid of the direct gas pigment system, and now you have your HK416 basically admitting that a short strokes piston was always the best solution. Something that for so many years people argued about, and oh no, it's fine like that. No, it's not. I mean, it works, but it's inferior. That's why the FAL has a piston. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, both of these guns in the barrel, they have a little hole about there, about there. You have the barrel, there's a little hole, and gas goes through that little hole and works the mechanism. The difference is that in your AR, that is a direct gas system, meaning the gas goes through that little hole, and that little tube, you see that little silver tube there, little shiny spot? Well, it goes through that little tube, and the gas pushes the bolts and works the mechanism. It works, yes it does. Fine, as long as you clean it and maintain it, but the difference is that with your FAL, what you have, and many other firearms by the way, what you have is the gas goes through that little hole, but instead of going directly, that gas pushes a piston, a metal rod is pushed, and it's that rod that works the mechanism. The difference though is that in this case, the hot gas with unburned powder, residue and whatnot goes right into the action, and in this case it does not. The energy is transferred with that metal rod. That is the solution HK found for the AR. Basically, your HK416 and some short stroke piston modifications for AR basically get rid of that tube that takes the gas directly and now replaces it with a metal rod that works the action. I think it's a superior design. I've always been very vocal about it, but I will also admit that given the popularity of the AR, it's very hard to argue against it, because in spite of that, you have a gun that is a lot lighter. You have a gun that is very ergonomic. The FAL is super ergonomic as well, by the way. It's a great gun. But the simplicity of finding accessories, the simplicity of the Picatinny rail, right, for having a scope, all of these things make it something that is better suited for the average civilian, the average guy that says, okay, I want to have, again, honestly, I like the AK as a survival gun, something that's very rugged, super simple, big parts, stuff you could even make yourself. And you can make stuff for any gun yourself if you're skilled enough. But the AK has always had this worn ass, beat to shit thing and still working air about it, which is very much true. The AK is a solid design as well. So is the FAL, maybe a little bit more refined, being the right arm of the free world and whatnot. And then we have to talk about this, which is the caliber. Your FAL will shoot 308, your AR typically will fire 5.56. And that's 308 or 7.62 by 51 NATO, and that's 223 civilian or 5.56 NATO, and that down there is 9mm for your Glock. And I have that there because my advice for Argentine people and advice for anyone watching this is understand the difference between you being passionate about firearms, which I am, I won't say otherwise, I love guns, and this, which is, what are my honest ass needs in terms of self-defense? Well, for most people, if you have a pistol and you have the training, you're pretty much good. You're pretty much okay, especially if you have the training. By the way, again, I do share a lot of the things you learn in classes in this book over here, Street Survival Skills, because I know that it's not always accessible. I know it's kind of expensive too, and it's not something you can easily find. The basics I do cover, and if you practice these things, you're gonna be far better off than not having this knowledge and not practicing this. And it's often the case that lots of the crucial, important things, you can practice it in your house, dry firing, without even using ammunition. The cost of ammunition is another thing that I tell people to keep in mind. Because as of right now, everyone in Argentina that likes guns and has the money is thinking, okay, as soon as this passes, I'm rushing and see what I can buy. And my advice is, take a chill pill, wait. There's gonna be something, there's probably gonna be a bunch of FAL sold. You wanna go buy the FAL, go nuts and buy it. But if what you want is something practical to defend yourself, you may be better served by waiting, see what gets into the market, and then make a decision. Honestly, as of today, I would advise anyone that is not into firearms or simply wants to have a better gun, especially if you live in a farm, in a homestead. Argentina is massive. Not only that, Argentina is mostly underpopulated because everyone lives in Buenos Aires, maybe in Córdoba, little else. That's how Argentina is distributed, and it's far more empty than the United States. There's places in which you will be on your own, like Wild West style, for very long periods of time. And for that kind of people living in a homestead, living in a farm, you probably do need a long gun. And for that guy, probably an AR serves them very well. Now, the FAL, it's a freaking beast. Of course it is. It fires a much more powerful round. Now, it's going to be heavier, more expensive. If you wait a little bit and see what gets into the market, I'm sure they're gonna flood the market with ARs. Why? Because everywhere you have ARs. Every country makes ARs. You have, in Europe, you have, 20, 30 different AR manufacturers, and like in every country there's a bunch of companies making ARs. Everyone makes ARs. So as much as you can say about the gas system or the cartridge being underpowered or not, the reality is that 5.56 is fine. No one wants to get shot with anything, least it's a caliber used by all military around the world. There's nothing wrong with it, And it is a scandal right now what's happening with a 277 Fury and that bullshit. Ridiculous, with a gun that is even heavier than an FAL. Makes no damn sense. The world uses that round there in the middle, 5.56, 223, because it works okay. It's not perfect, but it definitely does the job. We transitioned already from the battle rifle to that intermediate round for a reason. And it's been proven to be a good decision, I believe. More ammunition, lighter, and the cost of firing this thing is prohibitive at times. So my advice for anyone watching this, and especially for Argentines, even though I did the video already in the Spanish channel, is wait, see what makes it into the market, and then probably go with an AR. That's really all you need. If you have a Glock and you have an AR, everything else that you buy on top of that, it's not because you really need it to defend yourself, right? It's just because you just like the extra stuff. But these two will cover all of your self-defense needs. Let's be completely honest. All right, guys? So yeah, and that's something that I think works for everyone else. If you're looking to get yourself set up, oh, but I want to buy this and that and the shotgun and the rifle and the battle rifle, yeah, that's all fine. These two will cover pretty much everything. These two, and let's say you want to buy a pump action shotgun because you just want to have that option, I would throw in a 22 carbine in there. Really, not much more than that.